What's up, guys? We're back in the shop. We're going to be talking about some heavy-duty air cleaners today. So this right here is an original heavy-duty air cleaner. This heavy-duty air cleaner specifically was bought new on this tractor in 1973. This tractor has 690 original hours on the original hour meter. This tractor is very original, very clean paint, original paint put on by John Deere at Horicon Works. This air cleaner has been on here since new. I did not put it on here. This is a very good example of what one should be and what shouldn't be, and an example of what to go off of. So the whole point of this video is to show people what's out there, what's available as far as options go to replicate things, what John Deere produced back in the 70s, 60 years ago, and what's still out there today, and what to look for if you're finding one, that sort of thing. All right, so this is actually the original copy of the service bulletin that was sent to the John Deere dealers, stating that there's a new heavy-duty air cleaner available for the 120 and 140 hydrostat tractors. This is dated October of 1971, and you can see that the kit has one nice solid hose on this. It basically just says it's now available for use in extremely dusty conditions. A lot of these were bought by people using these tractors in, like, say, chicken houses and other dusty conditions. A lot of like, say, post hole diggers or trenchers or soil movers, things that are moving dirt and creating a lot of dust, these would be good for. All right, so that was the 140 service bulletin, and then they realized that there was possibly a need for people with 110, 112 gear drive tractors that also have something. So this is now May of 72, just a few months later, now offering it for a 110, 112 kit. So you can see here on the service bulletin, it lists both part numbers as being available. So you could have gotten both of them, but for most dealerships, if you could figure out that you could just splice these hoses together and use them as a 140 kit, there's no sense in stocking both of these. It's a lot more inventory costs and that sort of thing. So this is just neat paperwork. I enjoy having this to go along with the tractors. It's kind of neat part of the history, as well as dating it as far as what to correct. And a lot of people don't like to say, you know, oh, that tractor's too early for these air cleaners. Well, if somebody bought a tractor, say in 1969, came back to the dealership and saw one of these on a tractor and asked what it is or whatever else, they could have bought it off the shelf, put it on themselves, or brought their tractor in and had the dealership put it on. So it could have been backwards reversible. They all fit the same, they all bolt on the same. But as far as when they came out, these service bulletins are great to date it. This tractor has here, and a lot of other ones that I've seen, is actually a 110, 112 kit. Like I said, this was put on this tractor with this air cleaner in 1973 by the local John Deere dealer. This, you can see, is the original hoses with the original John Deere part number stamping on both of them. These two part numbers are actually, again, 110, 112 kits, along with the 110, 112 reducer. What they did was they cut splices out of both hoses and made it work for 140. This is far from the only one, and this is a fairly common thing to find, especially on 71, 72 and later tractors, because the dealerships just had this in stock, or they stopped stocking the other one and just made one kit for both. You can see here all the hose clamps with the carb adapter mounted right to the carburetor. So here's an example of a 112 kit, 110 or 112 square fender kit. You can see the mount mounted on the hood upright. You have the carb reducer, and then the 2-inch hose has a straight 90-degree bend in it, and then there's a hose that goes to the same carb reducer as a 140. So all they did was take a splice out of this section and then a splice out of the other section, put it on the 140. Again, you can see the rain cap, the rubber unloader, and then the correct protruded. And that tractor there shows that just because the book doesn't show it doesn't mean that it is an original to that tractor. That's kind of what I enjoy about certain things, because it's correct to that specific tractor, not quite correct to what the book shows. You can. All right, so I'm going to insert here a photo of an actual new old stock kit complete in the original box. Obviously, something like this is very valuable and hard to find. There's not many of them out there. Just kits in general with correct parts and whatnot are just extremely hard to find, as well as now when they become available to the public, such as eBay and Facebook Marketplace and that sort of thing. These kits are quite valuable and hard to find, and a lot of people are trying to chase after them and that sort of thing. So a lot of people have went about to replicate that, and there's quite a few ways to do that. I'd like to talk about a couple of different ways. I've seen a few people here late kind of making some of these kits and just not quite doing it to the quality that I personally like to see. And I don't know if it's just because they don't realize what else is available out there. So this here is an array of kind of good parts, some bad parts, some original parts, some not original parts. The biggest thing, we'll start with the canister. So is a 317 canister, and this is what's left of a very rusty original type canister. So you can see here the protrusion on the end is out. This is would be correct on a original heavy duty air cleaner. This is, as you can see, is protruded inwards. So obviously it does not change one bit of difference on the filtration of the air by any means as far as between the two. This is what's found on many 317s, 400s, as well as other tractors. This does the same thing. I don't want this video to show that you have to have the original parts. You don't have to. I think that the biggest thing with stuff like this is personal taste. Here is original, as I said. The biggest telltale sign as far as originality goes is this right here. So this cone shows that it is protruding out towards this wing nut. So this is an example of what it should be. So the point of this video is, again, to show that they do the same thing. You don't necessarily have to have the original parts. These are very sought after and desirable, which means, quite frankly, they're more valuable. These are out there much more common. They do the same thing. If you don't necessarily care about originality, this is a good example or a good viable option. You can see here is a foam gasket to seal the back of the air canister to the original bracket. So you can see here, this original bracket has square corners. I've seen them both ways. I think it's just a manufacturing detail as far as what they've changed over the years. With that being said, the next step would be is to mounting it to a bracket. So right behind the canister is a foam gasket that goes on the bracket that seals between the canister and this surface here. So this is kind of important, especially when you're talking about an air cleaner system. You want it to be sealed properly. So right here I have 3 brackets. Quite frankly, this and this are reproductions, and they take about the same amount of time, which means that they cost about the same. I don't know who made this. I made this one. This is an original bracket. You can see with the canister off, this has a rib in where the rubber hose goes. This is like a bead rolled edge, similar to muffler style tubing. This is stamped and then pressed in here. So it's very hard to replicate that, as well as you can see here, an original bracket will have a stamped edge here. All this was stamped out of one piece, and then this is threaded. That's where the threaded rod goes through the canister and attaches. So this will mount up to your hood upright, and you can see here, this one happens to have squared off corners versus actual square corners. The idea is that just manufacturing differences, different years, different manufacturers. John Deere, I don't think really made these. They probably just bought it off the shelf and this is what they had. This is what is the most desired, obviously, and it is original, and this is kind of what I like to show people to go off of as far as what's original. And you can see here that the corner has a little bit of a rib here. That's for strength, and you can see it on both sides where they push the metal out. So this bracket here is what I like to consider what not to do. Again, it depends completely on what somebody wants, and this is America, which is great because you can do whatever you want and I can do whatever I want. This is something that I'm not going to do. However, it showed up here and I just figured I'd use it as an example of what not to do. So this bracket here, as you can see, is not really close to original. It has tabs that obviously somebody figured out on a hood doesn't quite fit. So they notched it. They notched it here for the rubber unloader. They did a poor job of welding it, and there's all sorts of stuff and hammer marks and bends and whatever else you can see, as well as they used this rubber hose, and this is the same diameter the whole way through. And like I said, on a 140, they had larger hose diameter here, and then the hose itself shrunk. So to go to a carb adapter. So this is a reproduction of a carb adapter. You can usually get them at Habco Parts. Shout out to them. This is the correct dimensions and whatnot. When you put this on, you usually need a socket head cap screw. I believe it's a 1032 by 1/2 inch long screw. You need 3 of them to mount this to the carburetor along with a new gasket. And then the hose slips over this. As you can see here, this is very loose. It's like throwing a hot dog down a hallway. It just doesn't fit. And again, if you're only looking for functionality, this is fine. You can see here somebody had made this and they did a poor job machining it, and there's all sorts of machine marks and ridges and whatever else. So they made this fit this, which is fine, but it's just not even really close to original. What I've found is this is a rubber hose that simulates the correct diameter here, and it reduces here to the correct one with almost a 90-degree bend. So this, as you can see, fits basically the same dimensions. This has been used on heavy-duty air cleaners on John Deere 140s, 120s for the last 25 years. If you look, this has been posted, the part number has been posted on Weekend Freedom Machines in like 2008 and long before then. Rob Kruger, shout out to him. I've talked to him about him on this channel quite a bit. In my opinion, has been a great help in keeping these tractors alive for the last 25, 30 years. He did, along with a few others, did a lot of research to find this hose being the best. If you spend 2 seconds Googling John Deere 140 heavy-duty air cleaner, the part number shows up. This has been used and works great for this exact purpose. When you're doing these air cleaners and whatever else, and it goes for a lot of other things, doing it, I don't want to say the wrong way, but the incorrect way costs almost as much as what it would be to just go find an original. So this hose here costs basically the same as this hose. So why wouldn't somebody just go buy this hose instead of this hose? Some people are lazy. They don't want to look and spend 30 seconds researching to find this hose and just order it. But again, to each their own. Some people like this, so that's up to them. And so again, this bracket works, but the idea is that the amount of effort that somebody built and put into this, you could have spent the same amount of effort and made something a little bit more original that might be nicer and at the end of the day, a better product. So this is something that I came up with as far as a reproduction bracket. So I went off of an original, which again, luckily I have. So you can see here, they're the same dimensionally. If we go over top, you can see I made the indents. This allows the canister with the, this is where the rubber reducer goes. That sits in that little notch, and you can do it both ways depending on your application. So the idea here is, this is all laser cut with the holes accurately punched. I decided to do square corners. I used the correct 2-inch tubing to replicate where the rubber hose goes. Didn't need that anyways. The idea is that it doesn't have the rolled ring in it, which is fine. It still seals just fine. And this will sit right here and go right to the carburetor. What I did was instead of buying luminized exhaust tubing or anything else like that, I mean, you could do that, but again, you're special ordering the parts. You're buying that special size, length, and diameter, or whatever else exhaust tubing. Why not just spend 30 seconds and go on McMaster Car or any supply house, or go down to your local steel house and buy the correct size tubing, cut it to length, and move on. Again, you don't need special tooling for a lot of this stuff. I mean, this is fairly simple fabrication. You can use an angle grinder to cut that tubing. Obviously, you know, a bandsaw is going to be more accurate. You know, obviously you can see here I'm on my fixture table. You don't need all these fancy tools to do that. This could be very easily done with simple hand tools in a garage. I know some people, I've heard some stories of late that, you know, people are using metal street signs to make these because they, quote, say that steel can't bend, which is funny because that's what John Deere used. But again, you know, bending steel is obviously possible, as well as not something that is very difficult to do. You can clamp this in a bench vise and bend it. Again, it takes more time, but you don't need fancy tools. Or you could do what I did and take it to a local shop and, you know, bend it if you don't have them bend it. You know, it costs $20 to have somebody do it, and you might gain a friend and somebody that could help you out in the future. You know, I have the press brake attachment for the hydraulic press. That's how I can bend it for the 90-degree bend. Again, you don't need all that. You could potentially do it in a bench vise. Things like this, the original was stamped out all in one piece, with this strap basically getting pulled from the material where the open area is. I did a simpler way of just taking your tube, welding it in here. I did it on the back side, a nice TIG weld here around, the whole way around to seal it. I'm not the best TIG welder, but it'll hold. Again, you don't need that. You can just use a little MIG. You can go to Harbor Freight and buy one fairly cheaply. It's a good skill to learn and have. So what I did was I welded a small plate across here that's threaded to the proper size as the stud to mount the canister. So you thread that in, it's right there, it's welded on, it's not any more restrictive than the original, and you really don't see any of this. So that's another thing is, when you do all this versus do all this, you see all this stuff that is done poorly. All the stuff that I've done differently is kind of hidden by the canister. So if we put this canister on here and you bolt it onto a tractor, that's all you really see of it. So when I put a nice 90-degree bend in it, and then I take this and put the rubber hose on it, you really only see the back end of it. So what's cool is I took and figured out a way to duplicate the original dimple here on the bend. So when all this is powder coated black, this will very well look like a very original bracket. And then you put this on it and it's going to be hard to tell. The nice part is, and some people with originals will not like that people are replicating this, but people have been replicating these in a very similar way since, you know, the early 2000s. I know on Weekend Freedom Machines, a guy 20 years ago named John Underwood in Wisconsin made these brackets very similarly. Again, I'm not doing anything new. I'm just paying my homage to the people that came before me, and he's no longer making them, so I decided to make a few of my own. And again, replicate some things that I wanted to do and try and learn new skills. So the efforts that I did here are all hidden to where from here out looks all original. And then if you say, oh, that's not original, or like, oh, that makes my original worth less. Well, as soon as you take the air canister off, you can see that this is a reproduction bracket. I'm not trying to fool anybody. This is a reproduction bracket that is not an original. It's pretty evident and obvious here. That's part of the reason why I wanted to make this video, to show what is an original and what isn't. The cool part is that when you put in a little bit more effort into something like this, it really didn't take me much more to have this laser cut, bent, put a dimple in it, and weld a piece of pipe that was already bare steel, and a small little strap, and thread it for the right size thread, versus what they did to all of this, but yet this looks kind of junky. This would kind of look a lot closer to an original. So I'm just trying to show that if you spend the extra 5%, it doesn't cost anymore, and in fact, it probably costs less to do this than it would be to do something else. So I hope everybody enjoyed this video. I hope that somebody learned something. And if you're looking for some of these brackets and you want a reproduction bracket but don't have a canister, I can supply, say, like a bracket and the rubber hose and the mounting stud and a carb adapter, and you can provide your own 317 canister, or and I can also have a source for the radiator cap, rain cap, I should say, for that. If you guys want any of that stuff, feel free to DM me on here on YouTube, and always DM me on Instagram, at Pope of John Deere. If you're interested in any of this stuff, feel free to let me know, and I can hook you up. I can ship all this stuff to you. That's not a big deal. Again, if you want to see more of this stuff, put it down in the comments. Give me a like if you like it. Give me a dislike if you don't like it. Either way, don't really much matter to me. Feel free to subscribe, and I hope you guys enjoy the day in the shop.